All right, good afternoon. Welcome. Today's Rhode Island Workforce Initiative session is about the training offerings from the Department of Labor. I'm Christy Avery, today's moderator. My pronouns are she and her. I'm a 53-year-old white woman seated in front of a white background with my company logo, a red triangle shape. I am of medium build. I currently have brown hair that's shorter than I would like it to be. It was just cut and colored last night by my hairdresser of over 30 years, who unfortunately does this on occasion, but I love her anyway. I am also wearing glasses and have on a solid red zippered long sleeved cotton shirt. Today, for the benefit of those who did not attend last week's session, I will briefly go over the Rhode Island DSP statewide initiative, touch on the newly launched collaboration hub, and then we will have the pleasure of listening to Mr. Robert Kalaskowski speak with us about the role of the Rhode Island Department of Labor and Training, meeting internal workforce needs, promoting employment for individuals with developmental disabilities, and lastly, about employer incentives. From a historical standpoint, for those of you not aware, in 2014, the U.S. Department of Justice sued the state of Rhode Island to help ensure people with intellectual and developmental disabilities can live and work in the community. In 2021, the court required the state to launch a workforce initiative to address the workforce crisis in Rhode Island. I belong to a team of dedicated people from Sage Squirrel and Altarum that have been working together to meet the court's requirements and to create a stronger Medicaid program for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The vision of this undertaking is that Rhode Island will have a sustainable, comprehensive, diverse DSP workforce who have the knowledge and skills to provide high quality services and supports to individuals with developmental disabilities. The aims of the Rhode Island State Workforce Initiative are to create coordinated recruitment and retention, competency-based training and professional development, career pathways, ladders and lattices, and compensation that reflects responsibilities. The upcoming learning sessions will support these aims. Mark your calendars for the upcoming sessions on April 12th and May 10th. The community should know about and be proud of the ongoing and current efforts occurring. 4 work groups and a steering committee have been working on the aims mentioned on the previous slide. There have been 2 summits with DSPs, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, and agencies, and a set of core competencies have been created, and they and other helpful resources have been posted on the collaboration hub that's been developed for that very purpose, to collaborate and share. As mentioned before, the collaboration hub is a platform, not a website. There are all sorts of cool things on the collaboration hub that have been posted, and the upcoming sessions, the learning sessions, specifically the one on the 12th at 2 p.m., the registration will open up on the 15th of March. We will be talking about those core competencies and how to utilize them the best way possible. Also take note that on tomorrow at 3 p.m., the 14th at 5:30, and on March 15th, again at 3 p.m., there are hub tours. If you have not gone in and either looked around yourself and or taken one yet, I highly recommend it. It is now my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Robert Kalaskowski, Assistant Director of Planning and Program Development with the Rhode Island Department of Labor and Training, a position he's held since September 2021. Prior to that, Robert was Program Manager for Real Jobs RI, or Rhode Island's comprehensive workforce development initiative that relies on strategic industry partnerships to identify and address the range of workforce challenges Rhode Island employers face. Before joining the state's workforce development effort in 2014, Robert spent 9 years with the Rhode Island Senate as a policy analyst covering the areas of health and human services and education and commerce. In addition to his state service, Robert has worked in the private sector in hospitality, retail, and finance. Welcome, Robert.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you so much for the privilege of being here. Again, my name is Robert Kalaskowski, Assistant Director of Planning and Program Development with the Department of Labor and Training. I am a late 30s white man with brown hair. I'm wearing a red shirt and black sweater vest. I'm sitting in front of a pretty drab white office background, and I am of medium build. So again, thank you so much. My goal and intent here today is to profile a range of programs that the Department of Labor and Training has available to bring resources, reinforcements, tools into your toolbox in a number of different directions, both focused kind of on internal workforce needs within your organization, in programming that is designed to help promote the employment of individuals with disabilities, and a third category of programs and incentives that help encourage employers to hire the individuals with disabilities. So again, just to kind of recap here, now some of these programs that the department has are off the shelf and available to any employer. But that does not mean that we cannot leverage those programs to your needs and to this larger statewide workforce initiative. As long as the categorical eligibility is met, if we are helping kind of meet this industry and this initiative's needs, leveraging these programs that are available to anybody, so be it. I think that's a wonderful outcome. And in addition to those, there are some programs that are very custom, very bespoke, specifically designed by the board for this population and for this purpose. So we will cover them all today. So meeting internal workforce needs. These are programs that, again, whether directly or indirectly crafted as a developmental disability organization or any organization that serves the needs of individuals with disabilities. These are programs that can help meet your internal workforce needs, direct support professionals, really any staff internally. These programs can help with in that regard. The first program are our direct support professional introductory and training programs. You heard earlier that I was the program manager for Real Jobs Rhode Island. Real Jobs Rhode Island is an initiative that is run by the Governor's Workforce Board and by the Department of Labor and Training. It is community and industry sector partnerships. The idea there is that these partnerships know better what their populations and their industries' needs are than we do. As well-meaning as I might be, 17 manufacturers know better what the manufacturing space needs than I do, and 7 boat builders, or 8 developmental disabilities organizations, or 3 programs that work with veterans. And so we created these partnerships, and for lack of a better word, we put our money where their mouth is. They kind of create the strategy. They have a blank piece of paper and a pen, and they identify the unique challenges their industry or their community faces, and they create a unique strategy to address those challenges. And we, to the extent that we can, work with them and fund them to do that work. So we do have a partnership. We actually have a few partnerships, which we'll explore today, focused on the needs of individuals with disabilities. Our kind of the larger of the two is the one that we have with the Community Provider Network of Rhode Island. Now, they are the intermediary. They are the lead of that partnership, but the partnership is not limited to members of CPN Rhode Island. In a similar way, we have a partnership with the Rhode Island Manufacturing Association, but because while they're doing that work for the department, it is open to any entity that might need help with the programming that they offer. And so through that partnership, the Department of Labor and Training has funded a series of training and placement programs for the direct support professional occupation. These programs were developed with direct input from service providers, and they focus on preparing job seekers for entry-level DSP positions. Now, most of them are the programs that we've piloted to this point. They're mostly on kind of core work skills and an introduction to the direct support professional occupation. We do not yet, although we are always interested in creating, but we haven't yet created a training program that is really truly an occupational training program, 6, 7, 8 week course or whatever, however many week course, to truly give the unique skills to the direct support profession, but we are eager to do so. And we're always, if opportunities present themselves to do that work, we're interested. But for now, what we have is a series of programs that focus on core work skills and preparation for the DSP position. It is an introduction. There are videos, there's testimonials to give a soup to nuts kind of full spectrum introduction to the DSP position. So if someone were interested in learning more about these programs, I will flag that the training schedule and cohort size for these programs varies, sometimes greatly. They are contingent upon the availability of funding. But we're an organization interested in learning more about these initiatives or becoming a partner, a hiring partner to those programs. The primary contact would be CPN Rhode Island in their role as our partnership. And that contact information is here, CPN, Community Provider Network of Rhode Island. Their address, 110 Jefferson Boulevard, Warwick, Rhode Island, 02888, for those who don't know. And their phone number, 401-773-7771. And so again, in addition to the programs that we have, we are always got our antenna up to create a new occupational training program for DSPs. We certainly know the demand is there. But for now, we have stood up some programs in a sort of a pilot fashion, and that is the way you can learn more about that program. Once again, for internal workforce needs, this is a program that is off the shelf. It is available to any employer to put in their shopping cart and be interested in, but why not you as an organization? And so that is called the Incumbent Worker Training Grant Program. That program provides a 50% reimbursement of allowable training costs to organizations to train and upskill their own employees. So this is not for new hires. This is for folks that are already in your employment, but they need new skills. There's a new opportunity. There's a really terrific training that's conducted nationally that you'd like your staff to take. Or if you need to maintain some sort of accreditation, you can use this program for that as well. So if state standards or national standards or some sort of some other body has standards that you need to maintain, it's not about acquiring a new skill set. It's about, there was a question here within this context, what do they mean by incumbent workers? So these are workers that are already in your employment. They are already kind of on your payroll. They are your employees already. They're not new hires. And you are looking to train them and upskill them. One thing this cannot be used for is like onboarding, like training that, is truly core to the position. And, I always say if this was if McDonald's was applying, we wouldn't pay for training to make a hamburger. That's kind of core to McDonald's mission. But if there were management training or any other, any training that is kind of upskilling and advancing, and even if it is to maintain licensure or accreditation, an organization can apply to this program. The grants are up to $30,000. They are on a first come, first served basis. Now, I will flag that the way that this program is funded, an employer must pay into the job development fund to be eligible. Not all the programs we're going to identify require this, but this particular program, you do have to pay into the job development fund, which typically means you pay the state unemployment insurance tax. If you pay that tax, your organization pays that tax, you very likely pay into the job development fund as well. Now, who wouldn't? Well, some major nonprofits, some hospitals, they self-insure for their unemployment insurance. They do not pay into the state fund. That's their prerogative, that's fine. But if they don't pay to the unemployment insurance, that means they don't pay into the job development fund, so they wouldn't be eligible for this program. And how to find out, you can ask your accounting, your financial affairs team, or you can check with the state tax office. They will be able to tell you if your organization pays the UI tax, if you don't know. But if you do, it's a pretty user-friendly program. Basically, identify the training needs that you might have. You have to apply first. You can't, the training can't occur and then you apply after the fact. In fact, any costs that are incurred prior to the start date of an approved grant, we cannot pay for. But identify your training needs, apply to the grant program, wait for your approval. That approval will include a start date. As soon as that start date comes and goes, conduct the training. It can be weeks, it can be months, it can be multiple months. Hold on to all your receipts and invoices, submit them for reimbursement. And let's say the training costs $30,000, you can get $15,000 back. If the training costs if the training costs $60,000, you can get $30,000 back. So if you're eligible, it's a great way to help defray costs associated with required or discretionary training grants. Thank you, Maria. There is not a different way. Typically, there's not like an optional, like an employer who could elect to pay into the fund and contribute. The way it is in statute, it is in law that the Job Development Fund is actually, technically the Job Development Fund is not its own fund. It's a portion of the UI tax. That portion, that percentage, that fraction of a fraction is called the Job Development Fund. But essentially, the only means to pay into it is through the UI tax. But again, you have your own internal training. It might be state mandated. Like, I'll give you a parallel in the childcare, early childhood education space. Those providers have a lot of different standards they have to meet for state accreditation. So that's kind of imposed upon them by the state. If they pay into the Job Development Fund, if they have $20,000 worth of training expenses for their staff, we can cut them a check back for $10,000 of that cost. So that's what the program is all about. It doesn't really do training for you, but it lowers the cost of your own training. It's money back into your organizational pocket. And again, it's a pretty broadly defined spectrum of the kind of training that we can pay for. So if one were interested, the next steps, again, the application must be submitted and approved before training can begin, cannot be retroactive. Any expenses incurred prior to the start of a contract would not be reimbursable. Applicants do have to be registered with the State Division of Purchasing, which is common for most grants through the state. It's a very simple process, but basically the state cannot cut a check to an organization unless they're registered with the State Division of Purchasing. If one were interested, there is there's a guidebook. It's in English and Spanish. There are tools, there are instructions. Those are all available at www.gwb.ri.gov. And once you're there, it's very easily to navigate. But if you want to go directly to where this application lies, it's gwb.ri.gov/programs-and-incentives. So again, so far we've got training programs out there to help you hopefully find qualified direct support professional candidates. Now we've talked about training for internal, that you want to upskill your own staff. This is dollars to help defray the cost of that. And I will be profiling this program in two buckets. So the first bucket is meeting your own needs. The work immersion training program, try before you buy, or better yet, try before you hire. You may see similar programs that are in the vein of on-the-job training. I like Bob. Bob is a nice guy. Bob looks like he'd be a great candidate for me, but he doesn't quite have the background I'm looking for. He doesn't have the experience I'm looking for. So if I bring him on, I'm taking a risk. Well, what if I told you we could cut that risk in half? There's a candidate that you are interested in hiring. They are close to what you're looking for, or maybe they're not. But either way, you're giving them a chance here. Now, the good news about this particular program is you do not have to pay into the Job Development Fund to be eligible. The work immersion program provides up to 50% wage reimbursement. Once again, most of these programs are on a reimbursement basis. You incur the cost, you hold on to your documents and records, submit them, and you get a check back for the portion of the reimbursement. So it is a 50% wage reimbursement to a Rhode Island business that provides a temporary paid work experience to a Rhode Island college student, a high school student, or an unemployed adult. That is the category here. They cannot be a job switcher, meaning they cannot be presently employed and working for you taking from a different company. They have to be unemployed at the time of hire, or a college student, 400 hours. Now, I want to say this is not some special category. these would be individuals that are in your employment. Because the idea is that you're hiring and you're hoping that they're going to work out and become permanent employees. But for up to 400 hours, they're in your employ, you're giving them a shot. And if it didn't work out, well, that's unfortunate. Yes, excellent question, Karen. If they are a college grad, yes, they can be recent college grad. So college student or high school student, recent grads, and if you look at the program guidelines, they will describe what that means. But yes, they can be just a few months out of school. And if they have a job, yes, meaning hypothetically, it is a college student, they're bussing tables, I bust tables, but they want to become a DSP or they want to work in your accounting division, and you want to give them that shot. Yes, you can give them, you can hire them up to 400 hours, similar to the income worker training program. You apply first, got to wait for that application to clear. Then the hire's made. There is a little window. We don't want, and again, this is all in the program guidelines. We don't want a entity to say, Meredith is wonderful, I want to hire her, but it's going to take a while for me to get that approved contract, so I'm going to wait 2 weeks. No, we want you to hire Meredith as soon as you need her. So if you look into the program guidelines, there's a little bit of a kind of a flexibility, a little forgiveness window, but essentially you hire the person, you hold on to their pay stubs, and at the end of the work experience, you submit the pay stubs and you can get up to 50% reimbursed back to your organization for that hire. There is a cap on how many times a company can use this. I believe it is 5, meaning 5 candidates. Now, I will be revisiting the work immersion program later on, and I want to flag that cap can be waived for a population with a barrier to employment. So I'll put a pin in that and I'll get back to it later on. But for now, for your organization, typically the cap is 5. Next steps would be an application must be submitted and approved before the work experience can begin. There is a small forgiveness window. Any wages incurred prior to the contract date would not be reimbursable. The applicants, again, if you're a business applying for it, you do have to be registered with the State Division of Purchases. The participants must be new hires with no prior employment relationship to the organization. That's another thing too. There's a couple of caveats that might seem common sense, but you'd be surprised. So if Robert Kaliskowski was hiring my darling wife, Monique Kaliskowski, we would not be eligible. Ideally, I don't need an incentive to hire my wife. And there's other small caveats too. For prior relationship with the employer existed, meaning I let this person go, but now I'm bringing them back. That's not really what the program's for. But again, there's not many rules beyond that. What I've described was basically the parameters of it, but please review the guidelines first before applying. You can find those at gwb.ri.gov/program-and-incentives. So we talked about training and placement programs for direct support professional candidates. We talked about training assistants and dollars to help you train your own staff. And we talked about some financial resources to help cut the risk of bringing folks on as new hires into your organization. Lastly, and I want to thank a lot of the employers and partners on this call for the last 4 months. This particular team here at DLT has done sort of a blitz to a lot of providers to let you know what this wing that I'm about to describe can do. Most of the programs that I just described were external or a la carte that are kind of employer activated. The grant program, you have to apply to it. The work immersion program, you do have to apply to it. The DSP training program through our partnership in CPN Rhode Island, please, inquire with them. But there's federal monies that come to every state in the union, Rhode Island is no exception, that helps pay for getting folks jobs and helping employers find the talent they need. That is called the Federal Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and it is my lifeblood. It is, quite frankly, what pays my salary, and I'm grateful for it. And through that program, we have a bevy of services and staff an entire office that exists to help employers meet their hiring needs. That is known as the Workforce Development Services Team. They're here at DLT and they can assist with hosting an on-site job fair, an off-site job fair, meaning you want to hold it at your place of business and do a job fair and we advertise it for you. Wonderful. You want to host it at one of our job centers or a public library or community organization, we can help facilitate that. We have a state job board called EmployRI, where any job seeker, including folks that are on unemployment insurance, if they're on unemployment insurance, they have to post their resume to the state job board. You can peruse resumes there and you can post your job opening there and folks can see it. There's regional recruitment fairs. We partner with Massachusetts and Connecticut a lot on regional kind of large event recruitment drives. We can advertise your position on social media and other hiring activities. And so, you know, if your HR team could use a megaphone, could use some reinforcements, could use some amplification, it's available to any employer and we'd love to serve you. And if you're interested in learning about these services, and again, this is, there's really, if you're a sanctioned, domiciled Rhode Island company, you are eligible for these programs for the most part. And to learn more, you can go to dlt.ri.gov/employers. There's a bevy of programs. There is even programs that look an awful lot like the work immersion program. They have a program called On the Job Training. It's a bit more intensive. It requires a bit more on behalf of the employer, but it's also more generous than the work immersion program. So they have specialists, business service specialists that can walk you through all of this. And in fact, they have generously offered one unique to this initiative. So Chris Tangway is a coordinator of employment training programs. And if you want to just reach out generally, go to dlt.ri.gov/employers. If you want to talk to someone directly who has done this work, he may have even worked with you, some of you over the last couple of months. That would be a really great guy named Chris. He is at Christopher.Tangway, TANGUAY at dlt.ri.gov. And his phone number is 401-462-8791. His team exists to help employers meet their workforce needs, and he'd love to help you. Those were the 4 programs, the tools in our toolbox that would uniquely be helpful to meeting your own internal workforce needs. And goes without saying, if you have any questions on any of them, you can ask, of course, at the end of this presentation, I believe, or you'll have my contact too. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We're now going to shift to programs that are designed to help promote employment for individuals with disabilities. And so these are sort of like, if your organization is doing this work and you're looking to help individuals with developmental disabilities find work, these are programs that we offer here at DLT that can help in that regard. The first runs back to that WIOA program, that federal law that provides resources to states to help folks find jobs. And in this case, the program category is called adult. There is the adult career and training services. Adult is yes, it's 18 plus, but the adult in this case is actually a funding stream. That program provides basic and individualized career services, including career planning, job search assistance, assessments of skills, job referrals. We can even pay for occupational training, but there is a second category of eligibility there. But we can pay for someone to go to job training too. The individual has to be 18 years old. They have to be a U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. They have to be, if applicable, registered with Selective Services. And a priority is given to folks with barriers to employment, including job seekers with disabilities. So that is a priority population for this program. If you were or work with an individual with disabilities that is interested in learning how these services can help them find work, you would be encouraged first to reach out to our colleagues at the Office of Rehabilitation Services and the Vocational Rehabilitation Program. They do have a range of services that are uniquely beneficial and designed to help individuals with disabilities. So they may be the first, contact. But either way, we are available as well. And anybody who's interested in learning about these programs and setting up time with a career counselor could go to www.employri.org or www.backtoworkri.com. Those are how an individual, either directly or on someone's behalf, could learn about the range of programs that are available through the WIOA program to help folks find work. Secondly, I'll jump back to Real Jobs Rhode Island. As I described earlier, there are multiple dozens of different partnerships in the community and within certain industries designed to help folks find jobs and to meet the needs of employers. And so through Real Jobs Rhode Island, we have funded a number of integrated occupational career training programs for individuals with disabilities. These are typically initiated by that partnership. We don't create them. We defer to the expertise and the experience of our sector and industry partnerships to create a program and bring it back to us. And to the extent we can, we love to fund really innovative, groundbreaking, effective programs for job seekers. Recent examples, we have a retail customer service training program that was closely linked and is closely linked with CVS and other major retailers. We have a self-employment entrepreneurship program. There's a lot of great programs, and we are really, really grateful to our community sector partnerships for doing this work. They deserve the credit. They're the ones doing these amazing things. We are just funding and kind of administrating and making sure that performance is there, because ultimately our customer is the job seeker, and we want to make sure we're doing right by them. So once again, training schedules and cohort sizes for these programs vary. The programs are contingent upon availability of funds. If you are interested in sending an individual, or you are an individual yourself that's interested in learning more about these programs, or you want to be part of this conversation and you want to help create something that doesn't exist, you know, if you've got employers or ideas that you want to share and say, maybe we could create a widget making training program, integrated, contextualized, and in partnership with employers, wonderful. The two partnerships at this point that you want to inquire with are, once again, the Community Provider Network of Rhode Island, a phone number 401-773-7771. And if you were interested in the retail customer service training program, the lead on that is a gentleman by the name of James O'Connor. And you can reach him at 401-943-1866. And the last thing I'll say about these programs too is they are not just training. We have through these partnerships, we do a very comprehensive approach, you know, support services, transportation assistance. We try to be as comprehensive as our resources will allow. So that is the second program that can help promote the employment for persons with disabilities. We focused on our internal workforce needs. We focused on placement opportunities to promote the employment of individuals with disabilities. And now we have an employer that's interested in hiring. Let's make sure that happens, and let's incentivize and promote the hiring of persons with disabilities through a series of employer incentives that we either directly or indirectly are involved with. The first is the Federal Work Opportunities Tax Credit. Some of you might be familiar with this credit. It's been around for a while. But the Work Opportunities Tax Credit, also known as WOTC, is a federal tax credit for qualifying employers that promotes the hiring of certain targeted groups of job seekers, including individuals with disabilities. Service providers, if you conduct outreach or job placement activities for such candidates, you are welcomed and encouraged to inform the employer that, hey, you might be eligible for this tax credit if you hire this candidate, as a means to promote and encourage that hiring. There are additional eligibility and application conditions that apply. So any interested employer would want to reach out to the Business Workforce Center here at DLT first to make sure we avoid any complications, because as really great as some of these programs are, we definitely don't want an employer to believe it's a slam dunk that they're going to get the credit, and they were anticipating getting the credit only to find out that for whatever reason they weren't eligible. But the opportunity is there. It is an enticement. It's an incentive. And any employer that's interested, Form 8850. And there's a handful of forms that have to be filled out. Our business workforce team will work with anybody to help fill those out and make sure they're successful. The department has to verify a couple of things. And so essentially, the Department of Labor and Training, if an employer is interested in the federal work opportunity tax credit, it can assist the employer in completing the application. And then we also have the second responsibility of verifying that the individual was from one of the targeted groups that's eligible for the tax credit. And then we submit it, and the U.S. Department of Labor and the U.S. Department of Taxation take it from there. Anyone who's interested in learning more, dlt.ri.gov/employers. And right there is probably enough. You can easily kind of find the information about tax credits. But if you want to go directly to the page, dlt.ri.gov/employers /road-island-tax-credits. I won't go too deep into work immersion. I previously profiled it as a means to help your own hiring, but it also can help create job placements for individuals with disabilities externally. So if you are working with an employer and they are interested in hiring, whether yourself or a candidate that you're looking to place, an individual with disabilities, they can apply for the work immersion program as well. And they can receive up to 50% wage reimbursement for the first 400 hours of employment. Training, getting comfortable with the position, whatever happens during that 400 hours, apply, wait for your approval, conduct the hire, hold on to their pay stubs, 400 hours, submit, and you can get up to 50% back. And the really exciting thing here is, while I mentioned that 5 application limit, it can be waived to promote the hiring of individuals with significant barriers to employment, including individuals with disabilities. Meaning, if an employer is saying, the last 5 were wonderful, I'll hire 5 more. If you've got an opportunity there, let us know. We are more than happy to waive that 5-person cap, because that's something we want to encourage. Let's keep that going. And so if this candidate, an employer, is hiring people, and you've got placements that are just gathering, that's something we certainly want to encourage. So the 50% wage reimbursement program can apply for. We would waive that cap and encourage even additional hiring, just like before. And if anyone were interested in this program, you would want to submit the application before the work experience. Any wages that were incurred prior to the contract date would not be reimbursable. The applicant must be registered with the State Division of Purchasing, and no prior employment relationship can exist. Similar to the previous slide, about work immersion, www.gwb.ri.gov/programs-and-incentives. This one is really near and dear to my heart. Thank you, Paula, very much. It is currently active. It typically starts July 1st, the start of the fiscal year, and closes June 30th. There is not a window of applicants. Okay, thank you so much. There is no window, for the most part, to any of the programs that I just described. They often start at the beginning of the fiscal year. They close at the end of the fiscal year, and for Rhode Island, that is July 1st to June 30th. They are first come, first serve, and they are contingent upon funding. So the only asterisk I might put is, as you get later into the fiscal year, we may be low on funds, and we do a pretty good job, or rather, I should say, the Governor's Workforce Board does a good job of making sure that applicants know we are, limited resources, low on funds. The program may run out of funds for the fiscal year, and then we would close the program, and then of course it would reopen at the start of the other fiscal year. So while there is no hard and fast deadline, I would just flag that sometimes, it hasn't happened in recent years, but sometimes as you get toward May and June, if there were $300,000 allocated to the program, if it's down to like $70,000, $60,000, we do flag that the program might run out of funds soon, but it can re-up. Now, I will also point out that if it does run out of funds, there is no special caveat that closes the program. So if you say, well, listen, I wanted to apply in June and I made the hire or the training happened in June, but I wasn't able to apply, can I apply in July? No, it would, unless the training hasn't happened yet. The program starts fresh, it starts anew, and folks can't be kind of gathered in or rolled over into the new fiscal year. So thank you for that question. So this program is brand new. It went live in January, and it is, to my knowledge, something that no other state has done. And it is exclusively created by the department for the hiring of individuals with disabilities. It is called the Workplace Accessibility Grant. And the Workplace Accessibility Grant Program looks to promote the employment and economic opportunity of individuals with disabilities through investing in accessible workplaces. It is a 100% reimbursement for eligible modifications and investments up to $500 per calendar year. So it is not a match. It is a full dollar grant to an employer to make modifications. They need color-coded keyboards. They need audio translation services. They need to revise their job descriptions to be more accessible. They need to put a handicap. They need to put a ramp in. They need to put, they need to change the desk. It is a really broad definition of what this program can pay for. And it can pay for it up to 100%, up to $5,000. Any employer with fewer than 25 employees, that is what the only, that is a category here, who meets the eligibility requirements can apply. And just like the previous ones, apply, wait for the approval, make the modifications or investments, hold on to the invoices or receipts, and we can pay up to $5,000 every dime of it. So the origins of this, I won't go too long here, but the motivation for this was there was a national survey done of employers that asked what was their primary hesitation for hiring individuals with disabilities. Far and away, I think it was something like 80% of the employers responded, the cost. I don't know what it will cost my organization. They have this misconception that it's going to be thousands of dollars. Now, we set this at 5,000 because we want to break that misconception. But I think a lot of the folks on this call know we're talking hundreds of dollars, maybe, for the most part. Not always, but the same survey surveyed employers that did hire individuals with disabilities, and not the same exact survey, excuse me, but a similar survey was done of employers who hired individuals with disabilities. And they not only came back saying, this was one of the best hires I ever made, they also came back saying the modifications I had to make to accommodate this individual were dozens of dollars or hundreds of dollars. So this program is designed to jump over that major hurdle and tell employers, if your problem is cost, it's not a problem. We will pay for it, up to $5,000. So again, this is a Governor's Workforce Board program. It is first come, first serve. It is in a pilot mode, and we would love to run out of money here. We would love to do grants out to businesses. And the neat thing about it is, once they make the investment, it's catalytic. If they have modified their workstation or the bathroom or whatever investment they made, they might have made it for one hire, but it opens the door to multiple. So please do not hesitate to tell employers this. Also, they do not have to pay in the job development fund. They have to be a Rhode Island employer with 25 employees or less. And so if they hint at any financial concern about internal modifications they might have to make to hire an individual with disabilities, this program exists for that purposes. And it's $100. It's the 100%. It's up to 5,000. It is 100%. It is not a match. They pay and we pay 100% of it back, up to $5,000. And so application has to be submitted before the investments can be made. Any costs that were incurred prior to application, the program cannot pay for. The applicant does have to be registered with the state in order to receive the payment. And the application can be found at gwb.ri.gov/program-services. That's probably enough that you can navigate from there. But if you want to go directly to the page, it is workplace-accessibility-grants. So again, I want to thank you all sincerely for this opportunity. We are always eager to create new programs. We don't have unlimited resources. We're doing the best we can. But if you, 5,000, thank you, Kim, 5,000. The work accessibility grant, the point I was just about to make, we didn't see, there are similar programs across the country, but none that were this direct and that this kind of spoke to directly the problem. This was modeled after a program, and I want to give credit to our friends in British Columbia, Canada. We found in our best practices scan nationally, we found it just over the fence in Canada, and true to expectation, they were extremely friendly. They were delighted that we were going to replicate their program. And the really neat thing about it was, even though it's set at 5,000, most of their grants were hundreds of dollars, because that's really what the costs were. But it gets the employer thinking. If the employer knows, okay, I'm probably not going to have to eat any of this cost, the state's going to help pay for it, then they're willing to explore. And once they explore, they find that it's not that expensive. So thank you. It's $5,000. I am more than happy to answer any questions right now. And if something comes to you in the future, or if you think of a program that does not exist today, but really would be impactful and help, either meet your hiring needs or help promote the employment of persons with disabilities, please don't hesitate to contact us. Again, we can't guarantee any outcome, but we are always interested in hearing new ideas, especially from folks that are doing this work that really have that expertise. So any questions, please? Thank you, Jody. And if there's any, I'm just going to scan up real quick just to make sure I didn't miss any questions to this point. I believe I answered Karen. Start date on work immersion program. Paula, I believe I answered that there's not a kind of an open and close date to it. It's a year-round rolling opportunity. It just keep in mind that it can run out of funds, and just to keep that in mind. Kim, it is a $5,000 under workplace accessibility. The time frame for a decision is about 2 weeks. So from application, we try to have the quickest turnaround possible. So when we receive an application, it's usually about a 2-week window. We don't lock that in stone. That is the target, and we almost always meet it. But if the network is down here at DLT or something other happens, there may be some extended there. But typically, from application to approval, it's about 2 weeks. And then at that point, we're off and running, and we can start doing the work. So Kim's question was, how could an employment service provider connect job seekers with these businesses that receive the workplace accessibility grants and are now therefore accessible? So we can't, without their permission, share their name. I mean, technically you could FOIA, that's Freedom of Information Act. It is a matter of public record. So if you wanted to access that, you could. From a kind of customer service standpoint, what we can do is tell these companies that apply at their application and in that process, congratulations, you're approved. It's exciting, you're going to make these investments. And when you do, if you're interested, we're happy to share your information with these service providers that can help you find and place individuals with disabilities now that you've made these investments. So I think, Kim, what we could do is, as we get these applications, ask the employer if they're interested in sharing the information. And if they approve, we'd be happy to share it through these channels or otherwise accessible workplaces that are interested in hiring.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for attending today. We really appreciate it.
We did get
Go
one
ahead.
more question. So there is a kind of, as part of our work with employers, standard in our pitch and speech is that we can bring assistance to them around inclusive hiring. So it's not as specific as deaf and hard of hearing, but we do kind of share that information with them. If there's additional information that Jody, you could share with me in this regard, we'd love to have it as part of our package. And as we reach out to employers for the services that we can render, we also talk about one of the services we offer is helping be a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive workplace. And we would love to have that as part of the package. So please, if you have anything, send it my way. That'd be great.
I've heard that Amazon has a program where they hired deaf and hard of hearing, and then they hired an on-staff interpreter. I mean, I know every business is not going to be able to do that because they're not that big.
Mhm.
But if there's some way to help businesses figure out, how they can fiscally access some money to even if it's part-time, to hire interpreters or any other kind of person that is needed, like a CDI. I think that's often a barrier for individuals who work the communication. They rely on text, all this other stuff, but with colleagues and stuff, they don't get the full immersive experience.
No, I get it. Yeah. That would be great. Christy, I want to thank you sincerely for helping facilitate, and to the whole team. This was great, and I'm happy to be a part of it. Again, I hope this is the beginning of a conversation, by no means the end. So if anyone has any follow-up questions or comments or suggestions, please let me know. Thank you all very much for the privilege of your time.
Thank you, Robert.